You are watching the video version of the Marketing Should Be Fun podcast. We are so glad that you are here. If you prefer to listen to podcasts, you can find the Marketing Should Be Fun show on any of your favorite podcast platforms, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else. But most of all, we're so glad you're here, and I hope that you enjoy today's conversation. Well, welcome back to another episode of Marketing Should Be Fun. My name's Austin Savage, and I'm here with my good friend, Kelsey Zarko. Kelsey, how are you today?
I'm great. It's October. It still will be October when people listen to this, but it's like October 2nd as we're recording, and it just feels like all of the goodness in the year is here.
It's all here. You got to travel home to Illinois, so you like are carrying fall like with you, I imagine.
Yes.
At least.
The apple cider, the crisp air, like it's coming. It's basically Christmas is what I'm trying to say.
It is basically Christmas. You are absolutely right. However, I am looking out the window and I see a Halloween decoration just right in front of my window. This is the first year we've never really had like, maybe it's because we've moved so often, we've never felt settled enough to buy like Halloween decorations. But this year we put up one Halloween decoration. It's a giant spider web coming off of our house with a big spider on it.
Wow. Okay. I mean, here are your roots. You have arrived.
I've arrived, but it is very funny. Like while I'm working, I just like look out and there's a giant spider right there, which is just...
that's wild. When I take walks in the morning, it's still kind of dark, and our neighbors a few houses down have like 47 inflatables in their yard, and they're still inflated at that time, and it honestly is terrifying.
It is. There are some that are like super scary. My kids, like, it's so funny. They love those. Like when during Halloween season, like they will ask to go to the stores just to go see like those, like the ones, the animatronic ones and stuff.
Wow. You got some brave, fun kids there.
I do have some brave, fun kids. Yeah, you are absolutely right. Do you know how cold it was this morning, though? You left at the right time. Here in Illinois, it was 44 degrees this morning when I woke up.
No, thank you. I live in Texas. No, thank you.
It was so cold. Like my house said it was still like 71 or something like inside. But like I woke up and felt just like so cold. I was like, there's no way. It's 44 degrees inside. It has to be.
There, it's like the chill in your bones has arrived. Ugh. Yeah, I don't miss that.
No. Kelsey, we do have a fun themed this or that. And the biggest reason, one, is because you just said, right, we're entering fall. So we, of course, have to do a fall themed this or that. But
of course,
today we are doing a this or that or that.
Oh man, this might be like the first ever time on the history of Marketing Should Be Fun. Yeah, no wonder you said triple threat.
This is a big moment in our podcast. I don't know if all of these things matter to you or if only one of them will matter to you. So we're going to find out.
I'm ready.
Okay. It is fall season for the rest of your life. You are stuck in this autumn season. You're surrounded by, pumpkin patches, apple orchards, all of the fall things that I don't even know if you guys have in Texas.
We have we'll just leave the quality TBD,
But you can only have one of these things as part of your life for the rest of your life. First is pumpkin coffee of any sort, like a pumpkin spice latte, pumpkin cream cold brew, pumpkin coffees. Second one, pumpkin pie, a classic. And I'm really scared that you're going to say that you don't like pumpkin pie. A third, which this is also one I don't know, but your sister owns an ice cream business. So I'm hoping, but pumpkin or fall themed ice creams.
Oh, okay.
Which one do you keep?
Okay. I feel like you know what I'm going to say.
I know.
I do like pumpkin themed ice cream, partly because I grew up in Illinois in the Midwest where we have the Morton Pumpkin Festival and there's pumpkin ice cream every year. It's just it's delicious, but that in no way, shape or form comes close to the love I have for coffee. So we're keeping the coffee. I don't mind pumpkin pie, but I won't choose it. Like my fall Thanksgiving pie is pecan. I love pecan and I love like an apple pie. Apple pie is actually one of my very favorite desserts ever. So if you said apple pie, we would have had some real
That
problems
would have been
picking
a bigger
between.
struggle.
Yes.
Dang it. I should have just
Yeah.
said pie.
You should have. That would have been harder. I would have been like, no, I need to eat my apple pie with a cup of coffee. I cannot give both of them up.
For
But
real.
for the ones you said, I'm keeping coffee, but now I need to know what you're keeping.
This was actually a tough one. So I thought of the question,
It's a
and
good
I
one.
don't really drink like flavored coffees really ever throughout the year, except for the fall. Like I do enjoy like a pumpkin spice latte
Yes.
or a pumpkin cream cold brew, like both the
Mhm.
ones that I mentioned. I
I
enjoy
remember
both
that.
of those. But it was funny just thinking of this question sparked a memory. I don't eat like pumpkin ice cream really that much
Mhm.
now that I'm older. But it reminded me when I was a kid, my one of the things that my mom and I used to bond the most over was pumpkin pie blizzards from Dairy Queen. Like that
Oh,
was like one of
nice.
the not only things, but like one of the things that like we both really really loved, and we were like
Yeah.
every year we would like go get them like the day that they came out from Dairy Queen, which
That's
is
so
just kind of like
sweet.
a special little memory. Even with that, I'm not going to say ice cream, but
I was about to be like, Jill, are you listening? Is your heart warming? Just kidding. He's leaving it behind.
but I think that I would say pumpkin pie because I would be just as happy to have a pumpkin pie with a black cup of coffee, and that is the go-to dessert at all. You know, I don't know how long fall lasts, but like throughout the fall, that's the
Yeah.
go-to dessert.
I do remember that you love pumpkin pie. So that was my suspicion that you were going to pick.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Nice.
There we go.
That
The
was
first
that
triple
was a
threat.
fun question. Now I feel like season 2, like we got to do triple threats now. I'll
Yeah,
be preparing. Okay.
it's just like
I have some time.
every episode we just start adding another one. Like we
Yeah.
just
You have 10 choices.
10 choices. You can only pick one. Okay, so
Nice.
today we are starting the ABCs of content marketing, a little series, the old
Yes.
ABC series.
A fall mini series.
And we are bringing it back to the basics of content marketing. When I first launched Savage Content Collective, one of the first like sets of videos I did was
Mhm.
this, the ABCs of content marketing. And those are A is adding value, B is building trust, and C is creating community. At the foundation of every effective content marketing strategy are those three things: adding value, building trust, and creating community. And if you're able to focus on those things and do those things well, then those three things are going to help you solidify your place in your target audience's minds and in their lives, and is going to help you succeed more in building an audience, engaging people, and reaching the goals of what you're hoping to see happen with content. So today we're tackling A, which is adding value, and I'm very excited about it. This is a big one. There's so much to this, and we want to talk about it for a little bit, and then give you just 5 ways to add value. Like, what does that even mean to add value to people's lives? So,
Mhm.
Kelsey, to start us off, when you think of or hear, that idea of adding value through content marketing, one, like, why does this matter for content marketing? Like, why do we always talk about value? And just what kind of general thoughts sort of come to mind on that idea?
Mhm. I think it is the buzzword that people hear. And so it can become just this phrase that you're like, I hear it all the time. I almost just want to not listen to it. I don't even know what it
Yeah.
means. So I'm excited that we're diving into it and kind of like unpacking it a little bit. I think the reason we tune it out often is because we overcomplicate it. Adding value could, like you said, we could talk about this one literally forever. It's a big topic because there's just so many different nuances and ways and methods to do this. And when you're talking about content marketing, like you're adding value through your podcast, you're adding value through emails, you're adding value through social articles, like everything you're doing. So it really is more of like a mission and a value of your brand than it is like a tactic, I would say. Like this is just the air that we breathe. This is kind of the lens that we think through. But I think there's ways to overcomplicate it where it just feels like then we throw in the towel. So when I think about people and places and spaces that I spend my time consuming content, and you really try to ask yourself, like, this is what I would encourage you to do as if you're listening, is to think about like, where are 2 or 3 places you love to spend time right now online or in marketing spaces? Why do you like to spend time there? And really think about it. And my guess is when you drill down and think about it, a lot of it is because they're adding value to you. Now, that
Mm-hmm.
adding value could look a lot of ways. Maybe it's a place that just makes you laugh, or maybe it's a place where you're like, those are the words that I needed to say, but I didn't have the words. And this person like gives me the words to use. Or maybe it's a place where you literally go and you like find your workout every day or something. So many ways to add value, but I would encourage you to think through that because I think it'll be interesting for you to define what it is about that space that's adding value for you.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing too, to like lay the foundation for people with content marketing is thinking like, just like you said, of those spaces that you're spending time in, like, and we often see that tension. I think we just talked about it 2 episodes ago, maybe last episode, where, people feel that sort of pull to like over professionalism in their content marketing. And there's almost this like incongruence of like, I spend time in spaces that look like this or with content that looks like this,
Yeah.
but I want to create content that looks totally different because, for whatever reason, from a professional, like standpoint or what, when I think of like what my business should be creating, it feels like it should be different than, what I'm typically consuming. And there's a way to kind of like help those things, match up in an authentic way to, obviously there's content that you might enjoy that has nothing to do with, or like is a, totally different style than, what would make sense for your business. But the essence of, why you are, following certain creators or why you, subscribe to certain newsletters or read certain books, read certain, articles, like all of those things, the essence of, why you're doing that, you can carry over to provide that same thing for the people who want to interact with your brand and, want to kind of participate with what you're doing in a way that, helps them feel seen and gives them value in their lives.
Mm-hmm. What's the phrase we use about currency?
Trust is the currency of effectiveness.
Yeah, that is what comes to mind for me right now. Like we want our content to be effective. If we reverse engineer that, then we need to have people trust us. And most often we trust people in spaces where we have not just been like sold to or talked at, but we've found value. So it's just the root level of everything that we're trying to do. And you're right, it doesn't need to look like every space that you're in, but it's still the root of the human behavior that we see across platforms is adding value so we can build trust, so we can be effective, so we can build a community and we can live out a purpose.
Heck yeah. That was perfect. I love that. That just hyped me up.
Thank you. All right. Well, let's go. 2:30 on a Wednesday afternoon and Austin's ready.
I am ready. Let's talk specifically about how to add value. What does that looks like? So this is important, and as we're thinking of it, like what are those specific ways that we can do that? Kelsey, what's number one?
Okay, we've got 5 ways to add value that you can be thinking through. Number 1 is through education, teaching people things, sharing information. And I have a soapbox about this one. So do you want to say anything about education before I get on my soapbox?
No, I'm hyped to hear your soapbox. Let's go.
Austin's like, I didn't know there was a soapbox. No, I think I'm going to talk specifically about social media here because if you've been a listener for a while, this is what I love, but I think it applies across platforms too. Yeah. I think we've seen a shift in how education plays in content that we're sharing over the last year or two. It was very common to feel like you always needed to say like 5 ways to do this or 3 ways to do this. And I want to just encourage people that is still very valid content. But when we're thinking about educating, one of the main ways I'm seeing this communicate value to people lately is giving them like super bite-sized tips. Yeah. I mean, even in this episode, like we could talk about adding value in 100 ways, but we're like, here's 5 main ones. Keep it simple. I think we are inundated in our society by information, by videos, our attention spans. This is my soapbox every time. Our attention spans are getting shorter. I don't know if I love that we're playing into it, but it is the fact of the matter. Yeah. So how can we create content that lets people in and helps them feel like we're educating them and they're finding something that they can take from our content and use it to better their lives or to do something with it? But it doesn't have to be like you're teaching them your entire topic at one time. You can keep it simple. You can keep it bite-sized. And don't assume that people know what you're talking about. Often I see our clients get hung up on like, I don't know what to tell people how to do. Like everyone knows this. No, they don't. It will be surprising to you. The simplest tip you will share. And then people will be like, oh my goodness, my mind is blown. This is a game changer. And you're like, I thought everyone knew that. They really don't. So I guess that wasn't as much of a soapbox as I expected, but I think we can get overwhelmed here. And I just want to encourage you that education and adding value through education does not have to be like, I'm giving away everything I know for free.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is the biggest one, like with adding value is like, there is every brand out there. There are so many ways that you can bring value to people's lives by teaching them something that they didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen it, just like you said, like those simple things. We see it over and over and over again when it's like a simple routine shift or a simple, like easier way to do your hair or a simple, like, like these small things that like literally for us in our business or in, our daily life, like are things that we just consider as like no brainers. We just like we don't even think about them. Those things are still valuable, but so much of what you have to offer, can be trimmed down into, like you're saying, like we have those, 5 ways to get better systems or, hire people better, like whatever your, like your angle is as a company. And each of those can be trimmed down into like individual lessons, individual things that you can teach people. And what that does, for people is it positions you as the expert. It positions you as someone to listen to. And it does position you as that kind of go-to voice on whatever, subject you are wanting to lead people through. So I think that's the biggest thing is like getting people comfortable with sharing their knowledge. And, so much of our culture and just like even how people purchase stuff is so much less about just gatekeeping knowledge and like having a bunch of secrets that like you're promising people, which used to be big, honestly, like 6 to 7 years ago, even like that was huge, promising people something after they invested. And so much more today, there's more voices than ever that people can listen to. There's, more people in competition for attention than ever before. And as a result, like you have to showcase that you are a voice worth listening to and that you are an expert in your space to earn the right for people to take that next step, whatever that is, purchasing a product, doing a course, a subscription, whatever. Earning that through education is often what lays the foundation for them to take that next step.
Yeah, that's so true. Not that there's anything against webinars, but I even think about like how many webinars we used to sit on. And then it was like, and now if you want to come, get this XYZ, where now it's like, I don't need to go to a webinar necessarily. I've got 30 reels right on my, phone in my pocket that I can watch, get helpful information, and then trust that person and want the next step. So it is just a different angle and opportunity to share the value that we have for people.
Yeah. And one more thing on this too is like, I think there's ways as well. Like if you are selling information, like if that is actually what you're productizing, there is also that like the broader scope of, whatever industry or whatever topic that you're in, that you can educate people around the topic that you are selling. We went through a course when we had Willa, our youngest daughter, and it was like to help baby sleep or whatever, like I know there's a bunch of different courses out there for that person, right? Like their course is like all of the content, of doing that. Like they have a system that they are selling and, that they want you to subscribe to. But there's so many content opportunities around that about motherhood, about fatherhood, about parenting, about, just education about children, like all of these things that can lay the foundation of like, oh, you're a trusted voice. Let me buy this, sleep course, or let me, take this step. That you don't have to, get too stuck and too focused on the specific lane that you're actually running in for your services or your products.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Number one is it was education. Number 2 is through humor and entertainment. What comes to mind for you first, Kelsey?
I mean, I think this is like the entire Reels tab of Instagram showing us what we love. Yeah. I said this to you before we were recording too, when we were kind of brainstorming this. When you hear humor and entertainment, some people, this lights you up and you're like, I love to just make people laugh. And like, it's easy for me to be lighthearted and entertaining and all of that. And some of you, you're like, no, I don't want to dance. I don't want to perform. I don't want to, have to like stand on my head. And that's not entertainment and humor. I think what we're saying here is, how can you find ways to bring lightness and joy and fun to your spaces, however that looks for you? How can you just be a human? You don't always
Yeah.
have to be buttoned up, and where maybe education, I think these also can intertwine and you can entertain and educate at the same time, but where some space and content may be more direct and informational and like you're, transitioning information, humor is that lighthearted side of maybe just being a little bit more off the cuff and funny
Mm-hmm.
and just bringing light to some of the things that are funny about what you do in your industry and connecting with people. Being a human and not feeling like you just have to be a transfer of knowledge.
I was thinking like just even two of the most common things that show up in my social media feed are right now. One is like football highlights where it's just like things that I've already seen, but like they bring me joy. And I just watch a lot of them. So they keep showing me a lot of them. And Larissa always makes fun of me because half of my social feed on both Instagram and TikTok is just people playing music, like just like small artists, like with an acoustic guitar, like just singing an original song. Like I freaking love it. And like, especially on TikTok, literally like almost every video that like I scroll to is that. But that's an example of something like I find that entertaining. I find that valuable. And that's not something that's funny. That's not something that is, like comedy. And I have that, right? Like there are also like the types of content that I think is funny or relatable in that kind of traditional sort of comedic sense. But entertainment is, like you're saying, so much broader than that. Like it is, it going into just that space of just being somebody that you're like, oh, I connect with that idea, or like, oh, that's funny. I think that way too. Or, like, especially for me, like with ADHD content, there's so much content out there that like, people will use humor to illustrate a concept of like a challenge with ADHD or, something like a common thing that, people who have neurodivergence like face. And that is something too that's like entertaining, and they're using entertainment to showcase often like something that they're trying to teach or something that they're trying to educate about, or just something that they're just trying to just build awareness or just build connection around.
Normalize.
Yeah. But showcasing just that human side of like, oh, like this is a funny, little tick that, many people with ADHD have, is something that like I find entertaining and can still kind of like make me feel seen and connected to that creator.
Yeah. I think humor also is a fun way across platforms right now to create shareable content. Like we are sharing things with each other all the time that just make us laugh. I mean, how many times do you and I send a post back and forth that's like this like snarky, funny thing about like being an agency owner or like being in content marketing, because it's just like, oh, I think that way too, or this is true for me too. And so then we find this point of connection in an entertaining way, even if it wasn't like a haha, this is written as a joke. So it's really fun to be able to share that back and forth.
Yeah. And when it comes to like written content, I think of like newsletters. I think there's so many ways to add entertainment just through voice, like just through like letting your voice into your writing. A big thing with our agency is with Savage Content Collective is that ghostwriting is a big thing for us. So we really try to embrace like the different angles of, how people phrase things and, like the different ways that they speak. Being able to like let some of that stuff in is when we even just see people like connect more with a newsletter, just connect more with like being excited to see that type of content, because it isn't just something that they're opening and it's like just dry information. It's like, it feels like you're in a conversation. It feels like you're, like hearing that personality come through. And that falls in the entertainment category. That doesn't mean that it's funny. It just means that it's entertaining. It's enjoyable. It's like a good book. It's like something that you enjoy, spending time with and reading. And that's part of what makes good content marketing.
Yeah, that's so true. I feel like that one slides really well into number 3, if you're ready to go to that one. So much of entertainment and humor helps us feel connected. And our next one, so we've done education, entertainment, and humor. Our next one, number 3, is story and relatability. And I think this is another place where people can find themselves and they can feel seen and they can connect. And so a lot of these bleed together, but I love including story on this list. I actually went to a branding workshop this morning, and one of the speakers said, if you don't know your story, how do you expect your audience to connect with your story? And I was like, man, that's just so true. Like when we tell our stories, it gives people this entry point and this connection point to relating to us and to finding themselves in what we're sharing about and to feeling like they can build trust because they're like, oh, you're like me. I'm like you. I can relate to this. This is a safe
Yeah.
place for me where I feel seen. And often our stories can feel vulnerable to share, but they are
Mm-hmm.
consistently a place that is most powerful when we share them. So thinking through what your story is, how you can share that in different ways, how you can let people into, I don't just have this information to transmit to you. I have a story about this that can help you connect to me. And sometimes that's very deep and, passionate or meaningful. And sometimes it's just relatable, like almost a little bit of humor in there too. I mean, I think of so many times I've shared just different things in my stories about mom life or whatever. And it's my story and it's real and people experience the same thing. And so I've got these great DMs going back and forth where we've just found a place to connect because of a story that I shared.
Yeah. Yeah. There are so many different angles of that topic. And I love this one too, is like when we even contextualize that value that we're giving, when we can contextualize that education or that entertainment in our real experience or a story, like it's going to help that go so much further, right?
Yeah.
Because we are not only helping people feel connected to us, we're, kind of putting them in our shoes and they're able to like relate that, concept to their own life. But it's like bridging the gap, right? Between just like the information that's shared and, a real experience and our real life. There's so many ways that you can do this, right? Like you can actually go back to like your background, like you can tell people like your story, and like let kind of your journey, be kind of something that stands on its own as valuable, as something that people can learn from, as something that matters in the world, and is significant. And then there's also just like those day-to-day stories of your of your life, of like not connected to work. I think of like the reel that has done the best for me. I mean, this was like 2 years ago, still is the one that did the best for me, is when I told a story about how my daughter was getting into Pokemon cards. That like helped kind of like open up like a little bit of momentum for me on, on the social front. And it was just a story that I was telling of something that mattered to me because I was super into Pokemon when I was a kid. And I was like, this is, a really, really fun thing. And then it like started just like a series of stories of like, we started like watching through the animated series. And, I was like using my Instagram stories to like continue that kind of narrative of like, oh, we've started this, like we're in it. And like, that was kind of a fun thing. But one, way that we often advise people to connect stories to the value that they have to share is to just be thinking of those experiences in your day to day as a business owner, as, someone building a brand, of what you're seeing and what you're learning. Often so much of like the content that we can create can literally come from a conversation that we have with a client. Like it can come from a call that we're on, or, some way that we coached a employee or coached a client, and, how that same advice can be valuable to other people. And even just framing advice like that, through that lens helps it feel like a story, to be able to say, hey, I just got off a call with a client, and one of the things that we talked about was fill in the blank. And I know that this, topic can be valuable for so many, is a great way to contextualize that in something that was real.
Yeah. This could be a whole separate episode, but if you're somebody who loves story, or if this topic kind of sparks an idea, I mean, there are dozens of resources on how we are storied creatures. We love story. Our brain literally wants to close a story loop. I mean, Donald Miller is a great place to go for that. And so having that lens in general on your content is a great way to bring value to people, because we love stories. We want to hear them. We want to be in the story. We want to know your story. And you being a human and telling us your story just brings us great value.
It does. So we've got education, humor and entertainment, story and relatability. Number 4 is inspiration. With this one, this is often that angle of like using, I mean, you can use any of the tactics, right? You can use even just the ones that we've already talked about to inspire people. But, so much value that can happen through content is inspiration. Like it often is like even just inspiration for like a meal, like when I think of like, why did Pinterest, get so big?
Yep.
It's for this reason right here of like inspiration. People are looking for inspiration about how to lead their team better, inspiration about, how to cook different meals than the same 4 that they're, doing every week. Fill in the blank. Like people are looking for inspiration, and content is a way that you can, that your brand can be the one that provides that inspiration, that provides those ideas on how they can get better, on how they can change, on how they can, grow or try new things. And that is one of the ways that we add value to their lives, is by giving them that inspiration. But then I also think of like, this is a way to inspire people too. Like, that's a big part of my personal brand, of like what I am like personally trying to accomplish. I know it's a big part of your personal brand too, Kelsey. Mm-hmm. It is important to us that people feel seen and feel like they are capable of more than they originally believed through the content that we are creating. We want them to feel resourced, and we want them to feel capable and to embrace their dreams and what they want to see happen in the world. And that is a way to give value to people's life. You are helping them achieve more. You are helping them, see something in themselves. And that's very valuable.
Mm-hmm. I don't feel like there's a lot more for me to add to that. That was so good. I would just say two things. Number one, just a little plug that if you are going to inspire people, you have to believe that you are capable of inspiring them, and you have to believe in what you're sharing with them. So even those things like where you're saying, here's a meal or here's a question to ask your kid, you have to believe that that has value. And when you show up and believe it has value and that it is inspiring, just that entire tone and the way that you can give that content to people will be different. So you've got to believe in yourself. And the second one is exactly like you said, just inspiring people. The internet is a scary place, y'all. We don't need factual data for this. It's been a lot lately. And so when you can create a place where people come and they feel uplifted and seen and encouraged, and just that entire space is different, they want to keep coming back to that. It gives them value. So whatever your message is, when it is inspiring, people want to be around places where they feel good and they feel like they can move forward, and we can give that to them.
So important. All of these things, education, humor and entertainment, story and relatability, inspiration, we listed first for a reason, right? These are ways that as we're creating content, they're ways to get us out of just thinking about, what we do as a business, and just thinking about, the very narrow kind of lane of like, we just need to drive home our services like all of the time. And these are other ways that we can add value as a brand and as a business. But this leads us to number 5, which is clear messaging and clear offers. And just, it is so important to not lose sight as we're branching out in how we're creating content. We don't want to lose sight of still what we are trying to accomplish with our brand and the offers that we do have to present to people as a business. And the true value that the work that you do, whether you're a service-based business, product-based business, I mean, whatever it is, the work that you do is valuable, and leading people towards how you can help them is a valuable thing to do. And so we list this last, right? Because we don't want to just lead with this all the time, constantly with our business. We want to be creating content that is broader than it. But we always want to come back to this place of grounding our content in what we do as a business and what we have to offer.
I think it's Brene Brown, right? That says clear is kind. I think that's her quote. I think that is just what comes to mind with this last principle that we're talking about. It is kind and it adds value, and it is important for your audience when you make the ways that they can work with you clear. No one wants to be confused. And so being clear is just a way that you can provide that human service to them. I think I would encourage you, if you're listening, to kind of think where you are on this continuum. Do you feel like your content is like consistently almost all value driven and kind of skirting around your topics, maybe because you feel a little bit afraid to be clear about what you're offering? Or do you feel that your content is pretty heavy on what you're offering? Then there's going to be different places you can exist on that continuum. But whichever, way you feel like you're leaning, maybe you do need to be a little bit more clear about what you're offering and make those on-ramps really accessible. Or maybe you can take a little break from that and think through some of these other principles we've talked about and how you could add in a little bit more of that to your content strategy. Both are important. They're on the list because they all bring value. They're just going to be different ways that we kind of approach content and think about the information that we're sharing.
Yeah. All of these things are part of this core ideal, this core kind of foundation of content marketing is adding value. And, when we expand this, this topic really is what leads into the B and the C of this like ABC series of building trust and then creating community. It really all starts with our ability to add value. And I think I really love each of those things on this list. I love just thinking through, and hopefully it's helpful to people who are listening of, how can you educate people on, in your audience? How can you use entertainment to draw them in and kind of like relate with them on a concept, or, bring your personality into the content that you're creating? How can you use your stories from your life to inspire content, or, showcase things that you have to share? How can you inspire people towards action or, change in their life or day to day? And how can you make sure that the offers that you have as a business or as a brand are really, really super clear? All of those things, if we do them well, are what help us add value and start, the process of building a highly effective content marketing strategy.
It's true. We put it on a coffee mug once, but I feel like ending the episode with this is important. All of these things will not happen if you don't believe that you bring value to the world, and that what the world needs is what you bring to the table. So take all this into your strategy, take it and sit down and map out ideas. But remember, at the very root of this is that what you have to offer is valuable, and we want to see it. So light it up, friend.
Light it up. The world needs your dream. All right. We'll see you guys right here on the next episode of Marketing Should Be Fun.